The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Addiction Podcast. We have an interview today that I think you will like. He is at the forefront of preventing drug abuse and preventing addiction. We've had him on the podcast before. His name is Duke Rumely, and we're going to hear what he does to help address this whole addiction problem.
Hi, my name is Amy Newman, and my husband Bobby and I have a business called Newman Intervention Services. We provide intervention services for families who have loved ones struggling with drug addiction. Our goal is to help individuals get the support and treatment they need to overcome addiction and start on the path to recovery. With our personalized and compassionate approach, we guide families through the challenging process of getting their loved one into rehab and onto a road of a healthier future. Together, we can make a positive difference in the lives of those affected by drugs. If you or someone you know is in need of an intervention, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let's work together and bring hope and healing to those battling addiction.
Call 866-989-4499 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby. So, Duke Rumely, I have to tell you that I'm doing a different thing with the podcast, and I do just a really quick intro to kind of like a teaser. And what I said, which is what I believe, is that what you do is on the forefront of prevention of drug abuse and drug addiction. And I didn't say overdoses, but definitely overdoses. And so I left everybody with a bit of a mystery. And we'll get to what it is you actually do. But tell us a little bit about your story, and then we will segue into what you do.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to be on here again. So thank you. This is such a big deal for me to be on here a second time. And our nonprofit has grown a great deal since we last spoke. And we actually got to see each other face to face in Tampa for the Super Bowl, I think in 2020, so 5 years ago, right? And how different the world was then. And we had a bunch of sober support, and we had Miss America. I remember that was really cool. Miss America 2020 was there. She was super sweet. She wouldn't let us wear her crown. I remember that. But
yeah, I've never gotten over it.
No, I mean, me either, right? It's still the dream. Anyways, my name is Duke Rumely. I am the executive director of Sober AF Entertainment, SAFE.
Hello, I'm Joni Siegel, the host of the Addiction Podcast. In 2022, over 100,000 people died from drug and alcohol abuse, and that number is growing daily. Fentanyl poisoning, pot, cocaine, heroin, and even psychedelics and alcohol all contribute to this crisis, while we're bombarded with promotions from thousands of rehabs. Newborns are born addicted, and the majority of homeless people struggle with drug addiction. Drug dealers exploit online resources to sell to teens, and antidepressant use is spiraling out of control. This podcast features brutally honest guest interviews revealing harsh realities and offering hope and solutions through their stories. We don't sugarcoat anything. Guests speak raw and real. More importantly, you'll find inspiration to understand, overcome, and achieve recovery, whether for yourself or to help others, some within your own family, many among your friends or associates. Whether you're seeking help or just a glimmer of hope, our podcast equips you with the latest insights to confront this generational battle. Many listeners tell us they want to join the fight, but do not have the time or money to act, lobby, or just help. If that's you, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and see how you can help.
And we set up sober sections at music festivals, concerts, and sporting events. And we've been doing that since 2018, so 7+ years. And we've done about 330 different sober tailgates at music festivals, concerts, and sporting events. We've had about 25,000 people plus come through and come say hello to us at the event.
And why? Why did you start this? Why did you think it was important?
Well, back in the 80s, I was a big Deadhead, and I was seeing a bunch of Grateful Dead shows, and they had a sober support group inside the Grateful Dead called the Wharf Rats. And I knew that there was this group there that was somehow sober at Dead shows, so that seemed pretty cool. And then I was dragged to treatment in '89, and I had this thought in the back of my head that if I could still see the dead, then maybe this would be worth it for a couple of months. And I didn't think I'd be able to stay sober, but it was really a really important seed, I think, for me to realize you could still have fun sober. So I start going to Grateful Dead shows sober. That's amazing. And then fast forward, I'm able to stay sober. I use some anonymous 12-step groups. I'm a part of a community of people who are also sober at different concerts. And then I have kids. And 7.5 years ago, my son was 16 and his best friend had a psychotic break on a weed brownie. And my daughter was 20 and she was texting me she needed a ride home from Red Rocks from seeing Louis the Child. So, being a loving parent, I was like, how much you know, is, doing an Uber from Red Rocks? And secondly, what's going on? And it turns out all of our friends run ecstasy. So, you know, basically 7.5 years ago, I thought, we got to do more than just say, don't do drugs and alcohol till you're 21, right? We got to really show these kids how to do it. Really, my kids, right? So I selfishly started this movement knowing two things. One, we can do a better job of helping people that first year walk through the awkwardness of life, which is concerts and sporting events. At least it was for me. And secondly, we can show people who do want to go substance free for a night that they're not the weirdos. So this was a really weird idea, but so simple.
But Duke, you had your own problem with alcohol, right?
Oh yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, at that point I'm 28 years sober. So sorry, I kind of jumped over that.
You
So
did. You
yes,
skipped that part.
yes,
I wanted you to share that part too.
right. So young kid, probably 17 years old, had a very intense experience with alcohol. And, I went from this scared kid to having, you know, enough beers in me that I felt like I was the starting fullback for the Notre Dame football team. And from that day forward, without realizing it, alcohol really controlled my thoughts. And everything would be better if we just had alcohol with us was really my thinking.
Mm.
Um, and I kind of mentioned the Grateful Dead and was, big into having fun. And I got in trouble in Nogales, Mexico, which led me to be arrested and charged with counterfeiting. And mom had to fly down. So I was in a blackout with the wrong person. One of my fraternity brothers had some fake $20 bills.
Oh
And
no.
so, DUI at 18, this is at 20. So at 20 in Mexico in 88, you were guilty till bribed innocent.
Ugh.
So mom is down there after, 5 or 6 days. They said, if you want your son back, it's going to be 25,000 bucks.
Oh my God.
And mom says, keep him and walks. And mom had four more at home. So she knew that this one was not worth 25 grand at the time. So 2 days later, they lowered it to 4,000 bucks. So that's kind of my trade-in value. Um,
Oh,
so I get turned over to the Department of Treasury and to the Secret Service, and it turns out they already knew that I had nothing to do with it. So that was good. But it was one of those many red flags that went up. um, 1 week after that, I'm coming out of a blackout again, and I was in San Diego, and had missed the RV going back to Tucson with some different buddies, and basically came out of a blackout.
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We appreciate you listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. We don't do this podcast because we are former addicts. We don't do this podcast because we have loved ones who have suffered from addiction. We do this podcast because we feel that addiction is one of the biggest problems facing the world today, and that no matter who you are, no matter your religion, no matter your income status, no matter your race, no matter anything about you, addiction affects you. Many listeners tell us they want to join the fight, but do not have the time or money to act, lobby, or just help. If that's you, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and see how you can help.
And the last plan was like, hey, don't worry, we'll take a Greyhound bus home to Tucson. So I come out of this blackout and there's smoke alarms going off. And I'm in this small bathroom on the back of a Greyhound bus with a Bob Marley sized joint in my hand. This is how I drank. I would drink and somehow I'd wake up in the future with alarms going off. And, the I was hoping that nobody would be on this bus or just a couple of us. I don't know what time of day or night it was. And I cracked open the door just to see. And I was on the back of a 737 airplane.
Oh,
And it was full of people wanting to know why there's alarms going off and why does this plane reek of weed. So,
Duke.
and I was more shocked than anyone else on that plane. Like, this is not a Greyhound bus. This was not my plan. So that's kind of how I drank,
Well,
you
because
know.
now you're in trouble with the FAA, right?
Well, I should be,
Oh,
but it was 1988,
okay.
and the pilot came down and sat down next to me, or actually, I waddled out of the bathroom, sat down next to my buddy. The flight attendant pointed me out as the pilot walked down and talked to me. So one of the pilots came down and um, he started talking, and it was like the parents and Snoopy. I couldn't understand what he was saying. It was that wah 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 wah. That's how drunk I was. So I just kept saying it won't happen again. It won't happen again. And he just walked back and let me pass out. And we woke up in LA and changed planes. And I just said thank you and flew to Tucson. And that was just another one of the near misses. 1 week after the Mexico debacle, where I was banned and deported for 12 years out of Mexico. So,
Well, what made you finally decide you had to get sober? What was your point of no return?
so those were some red flag moments that I was able to look back later on. But really, even after those, I just thought those were near misses. And it was a year later, May 15th of 89. I got taken to treatment and was not real happy about it. And, in treatment, I was there for 8 days. That's how long treatment was back in the 80s. And, it kind of got my attention that, this might be a big deal, and got out of treatment with this idea of um, I'm suddenly not the black sheep in the family. And I kind of wanted to continue not getting DUIs for like another month or two. That was kind of the big goal of getting that early sobriety. Didn't know what an alcoholic was, didn't know if I was one, knew I had a lot of bad luck, knew when I was in treatment, I told my story to my group, and everybody's kind of was like, wow, like you're really sick. And that kind of got my attention. Um, and I think I just more, at 3 months sober, moved to a new town. So I moved from South Bend to Louisville, Kentucky. And I think the spirit of Alcoholics Anonymous got me more than anything else.
Hmm.
So I think I was just this, um, kid who had this mental health crisis, which was my mind would change its mind if I wasn't going to meetings. So, and I had a community of people in Louisville who would pick me up and take me to meetings. And I didn't have a car the first 2 years of my sobriety. And there was just a very loving community willing to take me. And I'm also in a new community, which is this college where I don't know anybody. So it was kind of, you're going to do one or the other, which is it going to be, and it took kind of a while for me to really believe, do I really have this thing? And kind of looking back, I was like, yeah, when you plan on not drinking, you usually drink. And when you start, you get thirstier. You probably have this issue. And and also bad things just always happen. I woke up in the future and was told I did horrible things, and it was never, you were so charming, you know.
You're such a fun drunk.
You led us on a food drive to
Yeah.
help people. It's like, no, that was never it. It was,
Right.
you passed out in my car, you took a whiz in the hamper, decided to climb a fence when everybody else was just hanging out. It was, nobody was happy with me. That was the MO. And so, that was kind of my what it was like moment of, kind of looking back at this, really feeling, I was not going to be successful in life. I'd flunked out of a bunch of colleges. I'd really embarrassed my family. Um, I felt like I was under this black cloud. My nickname was Schleprock,
Mm.
because if you're hanging out with Duke, you're one of the two people getting arrested.
Oh,
We always got caught. Um, we'd all run into the woods from the cops, but two of us out of the 20 would get caught, and I'm always one of the two.
and that would be you, right? So you've been clean and sober ever since then?
Correct. So that was May 15th of 89. So I am 36 years sober.
Awesome.
Shocking.
Awesome.
Shockingly. Yeah.
That's
I can't,
awesome.
I,
And then
I'm
you
wowed by it.
and then it sounds like you had, excuse me for putting words in your mouth, but it sounds like you had a little bit of an epiphany when you went to a Grateful Dead concert and found out that, in fact, you could enjoy it and be sober.
I was very fortunate that I had a good group of friends who were into the Dead who still allowed me, even though I was sober, to kind of go with them and hang out. And, um, I don't know if I'd recommend it to everybody, being 3 months sober, going to see the Grateful Dead, camping with buddies, right? It's
Who are
not
not sober.
correct. Um, and what's amazing is, like, I think that was a very important part of my sobriety, was learning that I could have fun sober. My life was 5% different. So it wasn't 95% different. I could still be a kid. I could still go to college. I could still pursue relationships, and still see concerts. And I think you learn in early sobriety, like, who are your true friends, right? And for me, I was lucky that, I had a group of friends who were in um, recovery. And then I had a group of friends who were not in recovery, but still allowed me to be a human being with them. And we went to, a couple shows a year, or, probably five or seven shows a year, kind of a thing. So what's really cool is that group of five guys is coming out this weekend to
Oh,
Colorado, where I live, and we're gonna go see Joe Russo's Almost Dead, which is a
okay.
Grateful Dead cover band, and we're gonna probably play some golf and, do some whitewater rafting, kind of a thing. But, I'm 57 years old now, so, it's just a treat to still, to be a friend and have friends is amazing.
And, you make a very, very good point, and if I can, and I try not to stand on a soapbox. That might be a lie. I might stand on a soapbox a lot, but I try to, not give a lot of advice, but if you are trying to make it through recovery or you wanna get into recovery, it's important not necessarily that you only hang out with people in recovery, but that you hang out with people who will respect the fact that you are in recovery. Because a lot
Yeah.
of times people can't do that, and maybe it's because they have their own problem and they don't want to admit it, but they need to be able to respect the fact that you don't want to drink and you don't want to do drugs, but you'd still like to party without that, you know?
It's so true, just kinda looking back at this time, right? I'm really a fragile kid,
Yeah.
right? I'm 51% sober, right? Like, a bad day can blow you one way or the other, and, I did have some, kind of friend of friends who would be like, "Hey, you still on the wagon?" Almost wanting me to be back to drinking with them,
You
you
could just
know?
have one, right?
Yeah.
You could just drink one.
And then I had this core group who knew me well enough, right? Who were like, "No, we like this version of you better." Um, but I think they were also a little gun shy of like, we don't know what to do. Are we still allowed to drink around you? Like, we're going to a Grateful Dead show. Like, it's almost like, don't judge me when I go to Cabo, right?
Right.
Like, normal people drink a little more when they're on vacation. So,
Right.
and these were 21, 22-year-old kids. So, um, I think, kind of the message that I felt like I got is I still could be a normal kid, even if I did drink. I was, drinking Mountain Dews like they're going out of style and, smoking Marlboro Reds. But, it was that early sobriety. Um, but yeah, I knew I had gone to meetings leading up to this. I knew I'd kind of that battery charged. I was hopefully 67% sober. I'd kind of charged up that battery a little more by the time I was going out with this thing. But um, I think learning how to have fun sober was one of the most important things I experienced early in my sobriety.
And that's huge. That is a huge lesson to learn for anybody listening.
Right.
To realize that you don't need the drugs and you don't need the alcohol to laugh, to have fun, to dance, to tell jokes, to enjoy jokes. I mean, you don't have to have the alcohol and drugs. Now, Duke, you told us why you started Sober AF Entertainment, but what is it? What do you guys do?
Well, it's been a pretty interesting process of, learning what's needed and what's wanted. I mean, um, the reality is that, alcohol sales really pays for a lot of, and advertising pays for a lot of things in our world.
I was just
If you
gonna
go,
say that because I'm on the board of a jazz festival and we make money from the alcohol
right.
sales.
Trust me, there's no money in abstinence.
I
Imagine in this box right here, nothing. We want you to have nothing. What we do is we create a community at a space that typically um, has a lot that can have alcohol and drugs. So people who are taking the night off don't feel like such a weirdo. So we're not anti alcohol, we're not anti drugs. We are just pro substance free support. And it depends on the event. We just came back from Floyd Fest, which was a music festival in Virginia, and they put us in charge of sober camping, and a sober support tent was being put on, and we helped support that. So that was a ton of fun. We had a bunch of repeat customers from the year before. Um, we in the past have brought headsets for silent disco, so we do silent disco, and um, that's kind of our hook with the music festival is like you might have a bunch of kids overstimulated at the end of the night. And at midnight, you don't want these kids who are all wound up to go to camping and wake everybody up. So,
gotcha.
thank you. So, why don't you give us one of your circus sized tents and we'll host silent disco from midnight till like 3 in the morning? So, we're just trying to figure out ways to make sober cool.
I just wanna understand how that works. So they wear headsets and then they don't hear the noise that's going on, like, they can actually chill out and sleep, maybe?
No.
No,
So these
okay.
headsets are tuned into 3 channels. So we have 3 DJs playing different music, and they can change it on their headset. So basically, you walk up, you don't hear anything but people dancing, right? You
Oh,
can't hear
okay.
the music until you put the headset on.
Okay.
And then the headset will light up red, green, or blue depending on which channel. So there's 100 people dancing, and you look around like, "Why is 80 people on channel green?" And then you go to channel green, you're like, "Oh, that's why." And then you enjoy that, and then you look around like, "Why is everybody on blue now?" And then you switch it to blue. So,
Okay.
um, music is a instant release of dopamine. So just depending that music really hits you, how much dopamine it releases. So um, for me, it's super fun for about 30 minutes, you know, but some people enjoy it for multiple hours at a time. And, we're there trying to put a different face on what substance free can look like. So, to kind of your comment before, we are the kind of the tip of the spear in some areas of it's the first time someone's going to see the recovery community in action. So, we try not to make it a sad coffee pot in the back of a tent. This is a bunch of people living life, having a great time, and a really fun community that's, in places you wouldn't normally think recovery is.
I love that. I think it's an absolutely brilliant approach to the whole area of addiction and recovery. And I don't I think it's huge. I
So
applaud you.
thank you. It's
I love
such a
you.
simple idea, right? And when I started this thing, I was like, we need to grow really fast because I'm sure there's a bunch of other people doing this at music festivals and at sporting events all over the country. And we really haven't found that. And it's because it's kind of hard, and, throwing lots of events have a lot of little details. And um, other people are doing different things. Certain bands have their own substance free support, which is the fans. We're a little different. We give out Narcan. We'll bring fentanyl test strips. We'll bring earplugs and do substance free support. We got invited to a 5-day long festival in Texas for the Eclipse called the Texas Eclipse Music Festival, and it was a 24/7 music festival. So that
Wow.
was very different. But every morning we would have a meditation meeting, we would have a check-in meeting, and then we'd have yoga. So, and what was interesting is there was a lot of other um, like psilocybin support groups that were there.
What does that mean?
So it was put on by a group that's very pro mushroom, let's say, psychedelic mushroom. So
Mm,
they were there, but they put up signs in their tent that said, "Hey, if you need Narcan, go see Sobre F Entertainment."
okay.
So it was really cool that we were both there, kind of serving different needs. There's other groups that will also be giving out Narcan, and but they're not substance free support. So you can see people hanging out smoking weed and giving out Narcan, which is also great. We're all just doing our own thing a little bit differently. So we're a little different swim lane than some of these other folks. So um, over the 7 plus years, I'm able to see the value of other groups, but at the same time, it's why ours is also just as important,
Right.
of how do we help kids who are really trying to go substance free for the night?
Yep.
Because, some of us, if we do go all, into that substance world, it can be life and death
Right. Right.
because we're losing 100,000 kids every year to accidental drug overdose,
Yep.
and we're not going to be able to rest our way out of this. We can't Narcan our way out of this. Like, we got to really just, I think, embrace some form of like, we got to quit doing the drugs that kill people. Why does everyone, taking these drugs to start with? Um, and I think right now these kids are stuck on their phones, and it's really a very scary time with all the unrest across the whole world, besides just the United States, and a lot of people don't feel safe. So I think what we do is going to be more and more important, even more so going forward.
I agree. I completely agree. And you were saying, you can't like drug your way into it, but same way with weed. And I apologize for those of you who think it's okay to just imbibe weed all the time, but we know that it's a gateway drug, and okay, but there are going to be a lot of kids who just need to be and substance free, drug and alcohol free. And I'm glad that you're there offering that as an alternative for kids. So, do they pay to come into your tent, or they can just come, or
Our tailgates are 100% free,
Okay.
and always have been free. What might cost money is a ticket to the game or
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. Well, that
festival.
makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Upcoming, we got a CU football game where we're doing a tailgate beforehand. Tailgate's free. We partnered with a local treatment center called Aim House, who owns like an old sorority, and it's 2 blocks from the stadium. But CU has given us $60 tickets, so we have a discounted, roughly half off ticket for anyone willing to go to the game. But you don't have to go to the game. If it's like we do stuff with the Colorado Avalanche, we do stuff with the Denver Nuggets, we do stuff with the Rockies. So if we do the tailgate outside of the stadium, it's usually indoors and at a facility that we can control so people feel safe. Then the whole tailgate's free.
I
But
got it.
if it is, in a music festival, you're gonna have to get a ticket
You
into
got
the
to pay to
show
get
first.
in. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Cool. And you are going let me give people your website, which is sober AF like Frank E.com.
correct. Thanks, Joni. Appreciate you saying that.
Absolutely. And they can go there and they can see your upcoming schedule of events. And we are also going to link to it in the show notes and also send it out in our weekly emails so that people know what's upcoming. Because I just think to offer not just young people, but mostly young people, because we're talking about prevention here. If we can offer them an alternative to thinking that you have to have drugs and alcohol to be cool and enjoy things like concerts and sporting events, if we can offer them an alternative, I think the majority of them will want to do the alternative.
And yeah, maybe we give them like that half off ticket or free ticket,
Yeah,
right? I mean, if I was a young kid and I got a free ticket to a Notre Dame game, all I had to do was show up sober. You know, there was a point in my life that would have sounded great, right? And then after I had this gene activated in my brain, I was more about the booze. But I'm sure it's cheaper not to become an alcoholic,
I think you're
right?
right. Or a drug
Secondly,
addict, either one.
right. And it's also cheaper, to stay sober than get sober, right? The getting sober part over and over again is so expensive and it's really, really tough on the psyche. And you don't believe you're going to be able to do it the second and third time because you already failed the first and second time. And so to me, there's preventive in a couple different ways. How do we get that gene not to be activated? And then secondly, how do we give them a great night so they can get through a dark night in the future because they're able to look back on, well, I did have a good time at Decadence, or I did have a good time at Global Dance, or, I did a good time at that Alabama football game or whatever it was.
I think it's huge. I love what you do. Once again, everybody listening, it's sober AF like Frank E.com, and it's sober and fun entertainment. And that's the whole point. You can be sober and you can just have a great time. Duke, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for everything you do.
I'm
Thank
going
you
to
for
show
talking
you
to us today.
our upcoming schedule real quick, if that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. So this is our upcoming football schedule. So if this is something in your area, I believe Joni will put it in the email also because I emailed a copy of this flyer. But we'd love for you to come and join us.
And I will link to it just because there are some people that might just listen to this and not see the video.
Okay.
So I will link to it so that people can actually go to your website and just see it.
That is a pro tip. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Duke. Have a good one.
Awesome. Great seeing you again.
Good seeing you. Thank you for listening. Hope you're still with us. So once again, Duke's website is sober A F like Frank E soberafe.com, and you can see the schedule of all of the events that are upcoming that they will be at, and check it out. It's a great alternative to thinking you got to be high or drunk to enjoy a big event, a sporting event, or a concert. I think it's a great concept. We'll be back with another interview.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.